excited it's Thanksgiving week, guys?
I'm so happy.
It's my favorite week of the year.
It's the best.
Food
So
and
exciting.
family.
Get double workouts in before Thursday.
There you go.
Oh, that turkey
Don't
burn
work
at Soul
out.
Cycle's fun.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
We're back here at noon Eastern tomorrow. For now, here's Harris.
Come on through with your good news on this day. We are awaiting President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump to participate in the arrival of the official White House Christmas tree. It will be presented by the Smith family of mountaintop Fraser fir, and that is in North Carolina. The farm was chosen after winning an annual National Christmas Tree Association contest. You know, those things get very competitive. Do you know about that? Anyway, it's been a tradition since 1966. The Fraser fir stands 19.5 feet tall, and it will arrive, traditionally as it does, by horse and carriage before ultimately being put on display in the White House Blue Room. I do want to mention, it is not always the case that the president would show up for this, but we are told that President Trump will be here, and that sets forth an exciting hour for us. We'll bring it to you live as it happens. And then with the news, we will begin with a Fox News alert. The Florida recount showdown has finally come to an end, with Republicans prevailing in two big races. This is Outnumbered Overtime. I'm Harris Faulkner. And the Senate race that triggered two recounts, Florida Governor Rick Scott defeated incumbent Democrat Bill Nelson, with Republicans now expanding their majority to 52 seats in the Senate versus 47 by Democrats. In the Florida governor's race, Republican Ron DeSantis beat Democrat Andrew Gillum after a machine recount. President Trump had campaigned for both Republicans. Watch it.
I'm very appreciative of the president. We've gotten a lot of good things done the last 2 years together. I look forward to working with the president to get good things done for our state. And I'm just excited. I'm excited about being up there because I've learned a lot as governor.
I think a lot of his voters he was able to activate and bring them out. And so I think that he played a very, very important role in this. And you look throughout the country, these races where he was campaigning, Missouri, North Dakota, these places, all those candidates won.
Meanwhile, embattled Broward County election supervisor Brenda Snipes has quit. Peter Ducey is live for us in Tallahassee with the latest. Peter?
Harris, on her way out of the office yesterday, somebody asked Brenda Snipes if she was worried that she might get forced out by the incoming Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, and she said she hadn't heard anything about that. But just a few hours later, the leader of this Broward County office that misplaced more than 2,000 ballots over the weekend resigned in a letter to Governor Scott, where she wrote this in part: "Although I have enjoyed this work tremendously over these many election cycles, both large and small, I am ready to pass the torch. Therefore, I request that you accept my letter of resignation effective January 4th, 2019. The recount battle that was fought in the courts is now heading for the Capitol tomorrow morning. The Secretary of State will certify that Republican Ron DeSantis will be the new governor and Republican Rick Scott will be the new junior senator. The Democratic gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum did not wait for the recount results to become official before conceding, but Democratic Senator Bill Nelson did, because that recount still left him more than 10,000 votes out of first place.
Well, things worked out a little differently than Grace and I had hoped, but let me say I by no measure feel defeated, and that's because I've had the privilege of serving the people of Florida and our country for most of my life.
So Nelson never got within 10,000 votes of Rick Scott, but he did beef up his totals in the days after the election and during the recount, which Senator-elect Rick Scott was watching very skeptically from home.
It was very frustrating. When I announced we'd won that Tuesday night, we were up 57,000 votes, and they just kept finding ballots. And so that's why, I'm thankful for a lot of people that brought light to this to make sure we stop this. And we're got to do everything we can to make sure these elections are free and fair.
Scott is going to join Senator Marco Rubio up in Washington in the upper chamber. And Rubio said today that the whole recount was really just about two counties in Florida disobeying the law and then lawyers coming down trying to change election law after the election. Harris?
Peter, thank you very much. Want to bring in now my first guest, Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida, who's part of Governor-elect Ron DeSantis' transition team. And you and I were together on the day when all of this started outside that election board office. You were standing outside with me. I appreciate you doing the breaking news with me on that day as we were learning about what would come about with the recount. So what do you make about the results? How big of a deal is this for the Republican Party?
Well, it's always a good news for Republicans when Florida is red. Congratulations to Governor-elect DeSantis and to Senator-elect Scott. But Harris, I think there are some things instructive about these Florida wins for Republicans that can be extrapolated onto the 2020 cycle. We saw how Donald Trump's coalition comes together, and it is reliant on huge Republican turnout. Here in Florida, Democrats did everything that you would expect them to do to win. We had the most diverse electorate in our state's history. There was enthusiastic millennial participation. The groups that Andrew Gillum was working to turn out, he did a good job turning them out. But when Donald Trump is at his best and able to activate at times 75, 80% turnout in deep red counties, it creates a real, I would say, red firewall against any potential blue wave. And I think we can learn a lot about that as we compete in whole states around the country preparing for the president's reelection.
Well, now you point to the very issue that the president has been making the last couple of days, and that is that he was the difference maker in all of this. I want both of us to watch and listen to Kellyanne Conway, advisor to the president on this issue.
I think that Governor Scott and Congressman DeSantis ran excellent campaigns, but this president getting in there several times in those last 6-7 days really made the difference. And also him encouraging them not to bail on their clear victories.
So is Florida becoming, and we've always called it a swing state, and we've seen problems with voting in the past, but is it one party more than the other, more than ever before?
Yeah, I mean, I think Florida has benefited from unified Republican government, and voters did not want to make a change there. But to highlight Kellyanne's point, if you look at the places that had enhanced turnout, it was the two media markets where President Trump had made recent visits, in the Panhandle, where I reside, and in Southwest Florida. So, again, I think the president could take a lot from the fact that when he goes somewhere, he is able to gin up Republican turnout. Also important to note, in Florida, President Trump won no major party voters. That's non-Republicans, non-Democrats, by 4 points in 2020. We slid a little on that metric in this last election, and so the president will need to win back some of those no major party voters. And I think that, you've already seen a tone from the president that wants to embrace working together and progress and getting things done for just everyday folks who expect the government to work for them. So I think that's really the key to success. I
caught a tweet from him over the weekend congratulating Andrew Gillum as one of the things that you're talking about. Let's talk about Brenda Snipes. Boy, this just got weird. I mean, do we actually know that the misplaced 2,000 votes? And can you just take us, what are the facts that we know?
So there are still major chain of custody issues with ballots. When they did the machine recount, they did not have the same number of ballots that reconciled to what they had been consistently reporting. And so you've really just seen a hot mess down in both Broward and Palm Beach counties. I don't want to let Palm Beach County off the hook for their illegal duplication of ballots without any sort of rational or legal basis. And so with Brenda Snipes leaving, the hope is we'll be able to appoint someone there who isn't political, but who could just keep the trains running on time, and most importantly, will embrace transparency. We have provisions of Florida law that would allow us to detect fraud or irregularities a lot earlier in the process, but Brenda Snipes ignored the law. She didn't make those required reportings, and that's why we were ultimately always playing catch-up to try to understand what had happened instead of knowing along the way that we have an election that has the appropriate amount of integrity. So I think that Ron DeSantis will appoint someone there who doesn't view the job as a political job, but that really is able to execute on the mechanics of running a clean election.
Well, it was interesting because you talk about her politics, but, on the other side of the aisle, she messed up in a couple of primaries for Democrats, too. It just bogs the mind as to how long she could keep that job. She quit, though. She's gone. Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida, great to see you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Harris.
All right, let's bring in Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics. Great to see you today. We often lean on your gathering of all sorts of things in terms of approval ratings and whatnot. Let's talk about 2020 and what any of what we saw in Florida portends for that election race? The president saying, you know what, he was a difference maker in Florida.
Yeah, Harris, it's great to be with you. Yeah, look, Florida is the key state for 2020. 29 electoral votes. It's going to be close. It's been close in the past few cycles. This election, I think, shows that the parties are very evenly matched, and turnout is key. It's going to be, again, for both sides trying to drive up turnout. And it's hard to see a path for either Trump or whoever is going to be the Democratic nominee without winning Florida. It's going to be that crucial.
Relationships with governors are so special. And now you have a number of Republican governors, particularly in Florida, where the president will, as you say, likely face a true swing state.
Yeah, no, it's very important that Republicans control the governorship in Florida and also Ohio. On the flip side, though, they lost governorships in Michigan and Wisconsin, which are two more key states for Trump and part of his coalition, the part that elected him in 2016. He's going to need those states again in 2020. So not to underestimate. Governors are important. Winning those states are important. On the Republican side, they've got two biggies, but Democrats got some as well.
All right, let's talk about the Democrats for just a second, because something happened in California once, twice, and then 3 times. You saw some seats flipping from red to blue, particularly in Orange County, Ronald Reagan's old home.
Yeah, sort of the bastion of conservatism that has been in Southern California for decades is now completely blue. Democrats, it was a total wipeout of Republicans in Orange County. And that's just part of the trend that's been going on. You see some of these states that are trending toward Democrats are getting more blue. Some areas that are trending Republican getting more Republican. And the question is, are those seats even recoverable for Republicans in the next cycle, or even when Donald Trump is no longer on the ballot? We don't know the answer to those questions, but certainly it is one of the things that Trump has to rectify in 2020. He has to stop his slide in the suburbs, not just in California, obviously, but in other states around the country. And he has to do better, quite frankly, with women voters. There was a huge gender gap this election. It worked against Republicans in a lot of those suburbs. And Trump's going to have to rectify that somehow, stop that slide if he wants to win in 2020.
Real quickly before I let you go, because the Christmas tree is about to arrive at the White House, and we'll have to pull away from that. I just love having a little bit of good news, don't you? Before I let you go, when you say that areas become more red or blue, is that like a policy thing or a candidate thing?
No, I mean, we've had a big sort going on in this country for a long, long time. I mean, you look at a state like Missouri, which used to be the bellwether. Right. That was the state that we looked at.
I will bring you back. I promise. The President of the United States is about to step up, though. Tom Bevan, thank you so much. Let's go outside the North Portico at the White House. And this is the official Christmas tree for the White House arriving. And I had mentioned earlier off the top of the news that sometimes you will see, you'll always see the First Lady. Sometimes you'll see the President, not traditionally present, but President Trump is definitely there. This is a tradition that we see every year with now this tree. Let me tell you about it. It's 19.5 feet tall, brought in by horse and carriage, obviously. It will be displayed in the Blue Room. The tree selection, I should say, is a competitive process overseen by the National Christmas Tree Association, and they've been doing this since 1966. The Mountaintop Fraser Firs Larry Smith was named Grand Champion in the Tree Association's contest, and so this is from the Smith family in North Carolina. Absolutely gorgeous scene here, and this really kicks us off officially for the holiday season, not just in the nation's capital so much, but just in general. I mean, we look to this to kind of get us going, if you will. The Christmas tree delivery is handled through the First Lady's office, and it networks submitted credentials through her office so that they can cover the event. Unilaterally, generally speaking, but President Trump is there with the First Lady Melania Trump today. And, look at all the press corps out there. This is one of those situations where you get the tree and then you get the turkey tomorrow, and it really sets up the entire season for us. And I don't know if we can hear any of this right now, but you've got the President of the United States greeting some people who are there. Remember, this is credentialed by the First Lady's office, so she has an idea of who's in this audience, would have shared this with her husband. An extra special treat to have the President there as well. as they formally kick off the White House 2018 festivities, led by the East Wing. This is getting underway now, and hopefully in the next few moments, maybe if we take a quick commercial break and come back, we'll actually get to see the tree being delivered and taken off the bed. But for right now, can you imagine being in the receiving line? You knew you were going to meet the First Lady, and now you're meeting the President of the United States as well. Stay close. We'll be right back. To questions which were sent to him by special counsel Robert Mueller. We're told he will not be submitting them today, but sometime this week. President Trump also says he's likely not going to sit down for a face-to-face interview with Mueller. Watch.
Your team is preparing written answers to questions about...
No, not my team. I'm preparing written answers. I'm the one that does the answer. Yes. Are they writing them out?
Yes.
Yeah, they're writing what I tell them to write.
Are they going to be submitted?
At some point very soon, yes. I've completed them.
No interview.
I think we've wasted enough time on this witch hunt. And the answer is probably we're finished.
The president also told our Chris Wallace he has given acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker free rein over the Russia probe. Catherine Herridge is live for us in Washington, D.C. with the latest. Catherine?
Well, thanks. Here is this morning. 3 Senate Democrats filed a lawsuit at the district court here in Washington challenging the Whitaker appointment as unlawful. The suit is brought by Senators Richard Blumenthal, Sheldon Whitehouse, and Mazie Hirono, arguing that the acting attorney general, is a senior government official or what's known as a principal officer, and those positions require Senate approval. Quote, because the Senate has not consented to Mr. Whitaker serving as an officer of the United States, his designation by the president to perform the functions and duties of the attorney general violates the Appointments Clause. Indeed, if allowed to stand, Mr. Whitaker's appointment would create a roadmap for the evasion of the constitutionally prescribed Senate advise and consent role. Last week, the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel found it provides legal advice for the federal government. It found that the constitutionality of Whitaker's appointment is supported by Supreme Court precedent, acts of Congress, as well as the actions of past administrations, Democrat and Republican. In this case, Republicans are on the same page.
The Department of Justice, I thought, put out a very reasoned statement, very reasoned analysis as to why the Whitaker appointment is valid and does not require Senate confirmation. So again, I think this is a side issue being thrown out there by the Democrats.
But we're also hearing consistently from Republicans in the House and also in the Senate is they want the White House to focus on the announcement of a permanent replacement for Attorney General. They say that's really what matters here, Harris.
Catherine, thank you very much.
You're
I want to
welcome.
bring in now Stephen Mulroy, former federal prosecutor and University of Memphis law professor. Great to see you, Stephen. I'm reading over some notes that you gave my team. And one of the things that kind of caught my eye is you say, well, this could be a signal that there's an interview to come, although the president says probably not, that he would not probably sit down with Robert Mueller. But you also say him giving the answers to the written questions could signal that we're close to the end.
Yes, I think that's right, Harris. It could go either way. If Mueller is satisfied by the answers that he receives to the written questions and doesn't feel the need to interrogate President Trump about the obstruction of justice topic, which he avoided in the written questions, well, then I think that's a logical conclusion to the investigative process, and it would be then up to him to summarize his findings and pass them on to Congress, and then it would be up to Congress, particularly the Democratic-led House, to take the next step, if any.
You know, we haven't talked about this in a while because the president sat down and wrote out his questions. He says he's finished, and it looked like things are still clipping along. But isn't the point of all of this that Robert Mueller has already said, at least reportedly to have said, that he would not indict this president? And so I'm a little confused about what exactly we're looking for in terms of an endgame.
Well, even if Mueller decides that he would not indict a sitting president, he might indict other people, lower down on the chain, and then perhaps list President Trump as an unindicted co-conspirator, the way that the special prosecutor in Watergate did with President Nixon. And or he could also transmit something to the Congress, which, even if it didn't mean an indictment of President Trump, might give grounds for an impeachment inquiry. So all of those balls are still in play, depending on what it is that Mueller finds, which could be, of course, nothing.
If you were going to advise the president on sitting down or not at this point, what would you tell him?
Well, if I were President Trump's lawyer, I would probably want to have him avoid sitting down with Mueller.
Still, even though he's answered the questions?
Yes, because in the back and forth of an interrogation, an examination, the president might say something that was demonstrably untrue when compared to what other testimony is or other documentary evidence, and thus perhaps create a perjury problem. So a smart, careful lawyer would probably prefer not to have his client sit down with the prosecutor. Now, of course, the Mueller team is going to say, we have the power of subpoena, and there's applicable Supreme Court precedent that suggests that a president does need to obey a subpoena. And of course, if that becomes an issue, that'll be for the courts to decide.
So interesting, that human element that I keep hearing attorneys say, that they can kind of catch you in things being inconsistent. And we've seen Mueller, that's where he's gone down the road of who told the truth about what and comparing those notes. Steve Mulroy, thank you very much. Appreciate you being on the program.
Thank you.
The death toll in the California wildfires has risen again. The death toll is continuing to rise in those devastating California. Reportedly confident the Saudi crown prince ordered the killing of a U.S.-based columnist, Jamal Khashoggi. But President Trump says that reporting is premature and that he will get a full intelligence briefing from the CIA as soon as tomorrow. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham remains skeptical and has some pretty harsh words for the crown prince.
If you know anything about Saudi Arabia and anything about MBS, the fact that he didn't know about it is impossible for me to believe. They're an important ally, but when it comes to the crown prince, he's irrational, he's unhinged, and I think he's done a lot of damage to the relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia, and I have no intention of working with him ever again.
Whew. Benjamin Hall, let's scoop up the latest on the facts in London with more. Benjamin?
Yeah, hi, Harris. Lindsey Graham also saying that the evidence against Mohammed bin Salman was overwhelming. And this while President Trump says he's spoken 5 times to Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, and 5 times Mohammed bin Salman has assured him he was not involved. So this CIA report tomorrow really will lay bare whether or not Crown Prince Mohammed has been telling the truth or not, and then how to move on from there. One of the other key pieces of evidence all along has been this tape from inside the consulate. And yesterday we also heard from President Trump about that on Fox News Sunday.
We have the tape. I don't want to hear the tape. No reason for me to hear the tape.
Why don't you want to hear it, sir?
Because it's a suffering tape. It's a terrible tape. I've been fully briefed on it. There
have already been some repercussions. 4 days after the U.S. placed sanctions on 17 Saudis in relation to this murder, Germany has also now banned 18 Saudis from entering 26 countries in Europe. And now Germany has said it's going to halt arms sales to Saudi Arabia, including previously approved sales. According to the Washington Post, there's one other key piece of evidence pointing to Mohammed bin Salman. They claim that Khashoggi received a phone call from the Crown Prince's brother, Khalid, who is the Saudi ambassador to Washington, and that he encouraged Khashoggi to go to the Saudi consulate and told him he'd be safe. So everyone waiting for this report tomorrow. And of course, it has huge geopolitical ramifications. Saudi Arabia, great partners when it comes to intelligence sharing, the fight against terror, now the pushback against Iran. So President Trump will have to make really serious calls tomorrow, perhaps the hardest of his career as president, if it turns out Mohammed bin Salman was involved.
All right, I know we're about to lose you, so I don't want that to happen. Before I ask you about the reports of a second audio tape, some media outlets are reporting about that. Real quickly, do you have information?
We don't at the moment, and there's been a lot of news coming out of Turkey about some phone calls which were intercepted, about some other pieces of information coming out from that. All along, Turkey has managed very well to control the narrative here, and so it's been quite hard to piece out what's true and what isn't, which is why, again, finally, 6 long weeks more after Khashoggi went missing, we hope to have the official version from the intelligence community. And I think until we get that, we don't want to make any speculations. But there are reports of tapes of Khalid bin Salman, Mohammed bin Salman's brother, as well, of course, those tapes from inside the consulate. There was one other tape which referred to the boss, that Mahed Mutreb inside the consulate said that he called Saudi Arabia just after the deed was done, and he said, tell your boss it's done. Much speculation about who the boss is. Harris.
Benjamin, thank you very much. I wanted to get that in before we lost you off the satellite bird. Thank you. Member of the House Armed Services Committee now, Democrat Congressman John Garamendi of California joining me. Congressman, thank you for joining me today.
Sure.
What do you know about the CIA intelligence report in terms of what they could have looked at?
Well, the CIA, I think, has done a very thorough job looking at this situation. The CIA director met personally in Turkey with the leadership of that country, receiving information from them. CIA operatives throughout the Middle East and other places collected information. I think it's rather clear the CIA came to a conclusion. Now, the president doesn't want to believe the CIA. In fact, he has a long, long history of not believing the intelligence agencies, this one and others also.
Let me step in, though. The president hasn't said that he doesn't want to believe this. I mean, you would need evidence of that. What he has said is that he wants to see the full intelligence report.
Well, we do
Correct?
know that there is an ongoing process. Every morning, the president is briefed on ongoing issues, and every morning the president receives a briefing and an update. This issue has been a hot issue. I am sure the president's been receiving information every day.
He says he has.
Whether he, well, he has. Well, let's find out. We're going to find out eventually, and we need to. And frankly, based upon what we do know from Turkey as well as from our own reporting, the Saudi government, quite possibly MBS, laid a hit on Khashoggi.
All right, and if the CIA report shows that, and Senator Lindsey Graham says he doesn't want to do business with the Saudis anymore because he firmly believes that, that's on the Republican side of the aisle. On the Democrat side of the aisle, are you saying a similar thing? And can we not make it about politics? Is that possible?
Well, let's just leave the politics aside. Where I was going is that we do have a situation where we need to be very, very clear to Saudi Arabia that this incident is totally unacceptable. What action do we take? Yes, the president has laid on sanctions. That's appropriate. But we also need to deal directly with MBS and make it clear to him that the kinds of things that have happened out of Saudi Arabia going all the way back to 9/11 are simply not acceptable. How do we do that? Well, the war in Yemen is a major controversy within Congress. I and many of my Democratic colleagues and a few Republicans want to rein in the American support for the war in Yemen. And I think we should do that, not only because of the humanitarian crisis that has been created, but also as a very, very clear message to MBS that these things are connected. And if he and his government ever again carries out any assassinations of Americans and those who are legally in our country, they can expect very serious repercussions. We do need to make it clear beyond just the sanctions. And I would suggest that the Yemen situation is the appropriate place for us to take the next step to make it clear to MBS that this is simply not tolerated.
You know, it's interesting what you're saying, because this president has worked to bring Americans home from places like North Korea. I again, would just ask that we could talk about it without the politics of you going after the president. He hasn't seen the full intelligence report, so I just put that fact out there. I'll bring you back on the program. We can discuss another day. Good to see you, Congressman. Thank you.
Always. Thank you.
President Trump is being asked to grade his presidency so far as he prepares to enter his third year in office. His response is raising a few eyebrows. The power panel will slide in next. It always gets interesting from here.
I think I'm doing a great job. We have the best economy we've ever had.
So where do you rank
yourself? We're doing really well. We would have been in war with North Korea if, let's say, that administration continued forward. I would give myself, look, I hate to do it, but I will do it. I would give myself an A+. Is that enough? Can I go higher than that?
The president giving himself a perfect score when we ask how he measures up against other presidents, pointing to the growing economy and easing tensions with North Korea. And this isn't the first time he's given himself high marks. Power panel now. Antoine Seawright, Democrat strategist. Jenna Ellis, attorney and director of public policy for the James Dobson's Family Institute. Jenna, great to have you on the program. How do you think the president's doing?
Well, thank you, Harris. And I would actually agree with his assessment of an A+, and this is because it shouldn't be a political question. It should be a constitutional measurement. And so if we look at what the president actually has power within Article 2 and his authority, then this president has not only worked with Congress, but he has actually done so much while staying within the constitutional margins for religious liberty, for sanctity of life issues. He's now looking at the First Step Act and actually working with Congress. So I think that if we actually grade him by an objective standard, we can see that he's been the most conservative president that we've had since Reagan.
Wow, that's really interesting. I hadn't heard anybody put it that way, a constitutional measurement. Antoine?
Look, Donald Trump giving himself an A should be no surprise. He is unapologetically fascinated by himself and his version of the facts and his version of the accomplishments. When you look at from a pure policy standpoint, I think the voters spoke loud and clear of how much they have rejected his rhetoric, his behavior, and his policy prescriptions that he has put forth, because the Democrats had a very good night on Tuesday, November 6th.
Picked up a new Senate seat.
They picked up a new Senate seat, but from a long-term perspective, you saw the Congress go the way it was. You saw legislative seats go the way they went. You saw governor's races, which will impact 2020 and redistricting. You saw those flip in places where he was successful, like the Rust Belt. And so if the president wants to fool himself and give himself an A, that's fine. But that's not reality.
Interesting you mentioned the Rust Belt, because your former candidate, Hillary Clinton, bucked the Rust Belt. But
she did not do well.
I want to ask about the economy and prison reform, because you talk about, that's why I was kind of surprised you started with constitutional measurement, because there have been some other things that the president might even put ahead of that.
Yeah, well, and I think, though, if he looks at his entire policy and what he can do, I mean, the economy and also prison reform, he has to also have Congress's support for, and he's done that by a wide margin. And so, I mean, even if we look at what he's done in the midterms, I mean, this wasn't a blue wave. Yes, we lost the Democratic House, and that's fine. But in terms of looking at what he's done comparatively with other past presidents, he's actually lost fewer. And so when we look at holistically, when we're talking about immigration, when you're talking about the economy, when you're talking about prison reform, those are things that constitutionally a president can't just act alone. But what he has acted alone on is to rescind bad mandates from the Obama era, like DACA, that went beyond the constitutional margins that he doesn't actually have authority to do.
But a president can lead, and this president has failed to lead on those issues. Look, when Trump
failed to lead on prison reform.
No, look, when Trump took office, his Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, went right away to work to undo policies and procedures that would have helped this prison criminal justice system problem we have.
But you have to do it within the margins of the Constitution, and that's really the point.
He did it by way of order, by way of his Attorney General. When you look at the economy, all Republicans talk about the economy is doing so well. Well, that's not true.
Well, wait a minute. We're entering a holiday season where a measurement of retail spending and confidence in the economy have to do with what real Americans are feeling.
The economy is doing well for some, but not for all, and that is fact, not fiction.
We are not going to go around in circles about this, but we are going to continue to talk. Panel stays. President Trump again defending his tough tone, insisting his administration would not have had certain victories if his tone were too low key. Does he have a point?
Republicans have gained another Senate seat in Florida. What does the 2020 Senate map look like? Our election guru, Josh Kroshar, will explain. Plus, we'll tell you what one Congresswoman is doing to get more Republican women elected. And as California recovers from the wildfires, what happens to children in the fire zone who can't go to school? There's an urgent need for makeshift classrooms, and we'll ask what's being done about it. All on the Daily Briefing.
President Trump defending his tone, saying his unique approach to politics has led to many hard-fought victories for his administration, including tax cuts and repealing Obamacare's and individual mandates, something that Jenna just brought up a few minutes ago. He also had this to say.
But a lot of times you can't practice tone because you have people coming at you so hard that if you don't fight back in a somewhat vigorous way, you're not going to win. And we have to win. This country has to win. We have a lot of victories coming. And I think if I go too low key, we're not going to have those victories.
Power panel stayed. Antoine Seawright, Jenna Ellis. Is he right, Antoine?
I think Trump is wrong about a lot of things, and I think this is just another page in that catalog. Look, the president does a good job of playing political dodgeball. When it's not his, when it's his fault, he will say it's someone else. He will quickly shift the blame, and he will throw people under the bus. Look, Republicans were convicted at the polls because of his failures on Tuesday night in many ways, in many sizes, in many shapes and forms. And I think Republicans are in denial about that, and I think the president is in denial about that. And so I hope he keeps up his behavior. I hope he keeps up the rhetoric, because I think the American people have rejected that, and they will continue to reject that.
Jenna, I know you were very patient. But I can see the eye contact that was going on there.
But yeah, no, I would of course strongly disagree with that, because he is winning. We are so much further in terms of an actual conservative agenda, which really a conservative and agenda isn't really the ultimate question here, because as a conservative, he is. I mean, we just talked about in the last segment about how much he has done for the economy, for the individual family, for repealing back Obama's overreach.
And that's
how
why
can
you got beat.
say that he's not winning?
That's why you got beat the other night, because of health care, because you failed health care.
Wait a minute.
We didn't in 2020.
So can we talk just a little bit about the history and how it has looked? A president who had bicameral sameness, if you will, for a political party has always lost a chamber. It has been not the case to pick up seats in the Senate, though, for that sitting party.
Exactly.
So I don't want you to paint it, Antoine, that it got glazed over by Democrats like full. It didn't happen like that.
You will not find me in denial about what happened in the Senate. But what I'm most concerned about.
Go ahead and let Jenna tell you why she feels like the president is going for conservative.
And not only that, is that you have a media that is so vitriolically opposed to him and is pushing back so hard in a way that we've never seen. No, we can hold him accountable, but we can do it respectfully and politely. And when we don't do that, I think that the president is right, that this type of tone, while we may not prefer it,
Jenna,
the problem really is the
word
culture.
decorum came up this week. And did you see the president's tweets to Adam Schiff, the incoming committee chairman?
And did you just see the video, by the way, and I love the Christmas tree, where he went and look, and he shook the person's hand. He was petting the horse. He's a very kind, nice person when he's dealing with politics.
Have you seen him behave?
Dealing with people who
am I living in a different world?
What do you expect? I think that
I'm living in a world where we have to go to a commercial, but it's been great. I'm going to bring you guys back.
I have no idea where I am right now.
Thank you to the panel.